Hello, I'm Alan Deutschendorf, sports editor here at the State Press. I'm here with sports reporter Pratham Valluri. We're going to talk a little bit about Bobby Hurley and the ASU basketball team. So this year has been a bit of a roller coaster. Can you give kind of like an up and down of how the season's been and compare it to how last season's gone so far?
Yeah, I think in terms of the expectations coming into the season, last season was really a poor season under Bobby Hurley. I think that was a season where a lot of people were, disappointed with Hurley and the team in general in terms of the talent that they had acquired for the roster. In terms of the recruiting class, was one of the best recruiting classes in the nation, and they really had a terrible conference record. And so coming into this year, there really wasn't much expectations at all. They had a pretty nice non-conference start as they did last year. But once it got to conference play, especially in the Big 12, which is pretty clearly the best conference in college basketball, you got Arizona was number one for a large part of the season, Kansas, Iowa State, Houston, a number of true championship contenders in the conference. It's followed a similar path where they haven't had immense success. You've had the highs of just recently last week. They beat Texas Tech, number 13 in the country at that time, but then you have a number of unranked losses. Like right after that game, they lose to Baylor, for example, and that's just one of a ton of losses they have. They're 5-9 in conference play, and a majority of their wins aren't the caliber that you would expect. But again, those expectations coming into the season weren't at that level anyways. But it's more about the play. They've had stretches of play where they've been really good, and then against the lesser teams, they haven't always put that together. And so, like you mentioned, it's been an up and down season for them. But I guess we'll see how the final couple games of the season play out, and really it's the Hurley tenure with his extension looming in the future.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last year of his contract, as you mentioned. The kind of culture that he's built and maybe some of the culture that the media and the fans have taken a little bit of like gripe towards, what would you say is the sort of culture that Bobby Hurley has built over his time here at ASU? What has been some of the positives and maybe some of the negatives from the fans' perspective of what he's done so far with his time?
I think you do need to contextualize it a little bit because prior to Bobby Hurley, they'd made 3 tournament appearances in around 2 decades of play.
Yeah.
And after him, I know it's been 3 tournament appearances in 11 years. We'll see what happens this year, but at least in his 10 completed years, he's had 3 tournament appearances. He hasn't, they haven't gone very far at all. They've made it past the first round once in 23, but they've made 3 appearances, which again, if you contextualize it against before Bobby Hurley, it's not terrible. When you look at Bobby, you don't really have that sort of track record with him where it says, okay, even if I don't know what's happening, well, he has a track record of developing these people. You don't really have that. And then when you watch the games, sometimes it looks really nice. Like defensively, they're sound, and then other times they're not. And I don't know if that's a Bobby thing, and I don't know if that's a team thing, but at the end of the day, the team is always shifting. Bobby's been the constant for 11 years. The coaches that have come into ASU and have been able to do that, it contrasts with what Bobby's been able to do, whether it's Kenny, whether it's Molly Miller, whether it's JJ Van Niel, who've all had immense success within 2 or 3 years. And with Bobby, it's been a long time, and you really haven't had the sustained, consistent amount of success that you would expect from a truly great college basketball player and someone who I think has a really good mind for the game and speaks very well, but he just hasn't been able to translate that into results on the court.
Yeah, I mean, there has been a lot of great recruiting classes for men's basketball. You talked about a huge one last year with Jaden Quains, who's now at Kentucky. This season, a lot of turnover again, but there are still some bright spots. Everybody has kind of flocked towards Moe Odum. What do you think his role is with the team, kind of brought into a leadership position and just taken over the roster that many expected to finish dead last in the conference? And they haven't been outstanding, but they've certainly been better than expectations.
Yeah, honestly, I think this team works together better than last year's did. And that's a little, last year's team was very injured. Jaden Quaintance had a torn ACL, which I don't think any of us knew about until he transferred to Kentucky. And then he revealed that he had a torn ACL, which is obviously a huge thing. Josan Sanin was hurt early and he missed a ton of time. And they had, BJ Freeman, obviously, they had that issue with him. And it was just a real mess last year, to be honest, in terms of people were in, people were out. You didn't know what it was. And so this year's team, I think, actually functions as a team better. It's just that the talent isn't quite there. You know, Jaden Quaintance is someone who's probably going to go in the lottery in the NBA draft if he declares this year. You know, that's an extreme. He's a 5-star recruit. He was the first 5-star since Josh Christopher in 2013, and just the second since Harden in 08 or 09. So to recruit that type of player, one is a great thing to get him to ASU, especially when he was 17. But yeah, the team last year just wasn't. It didn't mesh. It was a weird roster with, again, so much talent, but it just never came together. With Moe this year, I feel like, again, the talent isn't quite to that level, but it's a bunch of mid-majors. You know, Pig Johnson is also one who's come in and been in that leadership sort of role. But Moe has just been, he's been just the rock for this team, I think. They've relied on him so much offensively. He's led them to some of their biggest wins, and at the end of the day, he's a small guard. So it's going to be dependent on his shooting, and sometimes he has these fantastic nights. You know, the Texas Tech night, for example, he hit some huge threes to stop some runs in that tournament early in the season in Maui. You know, against Texas, he had a huge 36 points or 35 points or something around that, where again he blows up and he has those sort of games. But at the end of the day, you can't rely on that consistently. The best teams in college basketball always have a sort of process, a sort of repeatable offense that they could go to. It's not just hand it to Moe and let's hope he scores 30 points today. And so I think Moe's done a really good job, honestly, with what he's been given. He's been tasked to do a lot, and he's been a good shooter. He's been their best shooter, honestly, considering the type of coverage he's faced. He still, I think, leads the team in three-point percentage, or last time I checked, or at least near the top in that, and that's with getting, again, a ton of coverage. They're blitzing his ball screens. They're in their zones. They're going to focus on containing him versus, the rest of the roster, and he's still been able to put up, really solid numbers. And that's just, I think, come down to experience. He's been in college basketball for a number of years right now. And leadership-wise as well, someone like Masamba Diop, who is extremely young, extremely raw. Bobby Hurley mentioned that he came to the team, didn't even strength train, and he's an extremely talented guy. He's probably going to declare for the draft in a couple of years as well. And we've seen Odum, talk about mentoring him and pushing him to be better and reach that sort of ceiling that we've seen from Diop as well. So I think Odom's done a really good job with what he's been given, which hasn't been a lot. And they've supported him in some ways, but at the end of the day, he can only do so much in his physical abilities, and I think he's done quite well with what he's been able to do.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of culture, what would you say he brings to the team, and the rest of the team kind of brings their own culture and to kind of turn the season around after what was a very slow conference start to get some of these big wins, including over Texas Tech just recently?
Yeah, I think culture-wise, the Bobby quote against, I forgot who it was exactly right now, but he said, our defense sucks. He said, we can't rebound. And before, a couple of games before that, he said, I can't get through to the team. So he was making all these, really bold, claims where, if you're in media listening to that, you're saying, we can look at the numbers and say, yeah, they're the worst rebounding team in the Big 12. But when Bobby comes and just says that plain to the media, it's a bit more revealing, I think, of sort of his mindset right there. And so they come out the next game and against Tech, and the rebounding's a lot better. They out-rebounded, I think, 2 of the next 3 teams they faced after that. And then offensive glass as well. They were huge on the offensive glass. Truitt, who's been their best rebounder alongside Diop, came out. He was like, I took that a little personally because, I'm the main rebounder on this team, and I feel like he was calling me out a little bit. And Mukeba came out and said, I didn't take that as a disparaging comment. I just took that as him saying that we aren't performing to our standards, and that's all true. And I think that's sort of the culture that could be there for this team, because they are, again, a lot of mid-majors, a lot of experienced players who have this sort of underdog sort of mindset. Odum had a really good quote of the Tech win, which was I had to feel this. The energy of a court rush. I had to feel it because we were never able to beat a big team at a mid-major. And so you sort of understand where they're coming from and sort of packaging that into one. But again, the culture, bleeds into the play as well. And when the play isn't going as well, We see this type of comments that Bobby's made, and I don't think the team's culture is particularly bad or anything, but again, it's just about the play, and their culture isn't. I don't think it's necessarily reflective or indicative of their play. It's just been there, and I think it's a team that works well together, like I said, and they've had experience, and they've had, a lot of veterans on this team, but maybe it hasn't always showed on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, moving into the future of ASU basketball, a lot is in the air right now. Where do you think the fans are kind of looking at this team to go, maybe hoping what happens in the future, looking to try to make that tournament, probably not this year, but in the future, in the next couple of years, get back to a place that women's basketball is heading and that the fans really just want to see?
Again, I think it comes back down to expectations, because no one enters the season and thinks that Arizona State men's basketball is going to be one of the 10 or 15 best teams in the country. It's just about playing at a level where when you see the team and you don't come out of DFA going like, I don't know what I just witnessed. And so for Bobby, or at least for this season, you have 4 games left. You're probably not going to make the tournament unless you miraculously beat Kansas and Iowa State on the road, which, I mean, anything's possible, but it's a slim chance that happens, especially after you just lose to Baylor in a very winnable game where you were up 10 again early in that game, and you could have easily won that. There have been a number of games where they've been up, squandered leads. The Arizona games, they were in it for a couple. So I think from a fan's perspective, I mean, I talked to a couple of fans, but I think the general sentiment is they'd like to see what could be there beyond. Bobby Hurley, I think, again, it comes down to what Graham Rossini thinks. It comes down to what Bobby Hurley himself thinks. It comes down to the ASU side of things more than, what the fans obviously think. But if I were ASU and I'm just, again, looking at the records, looking at maybe just even a fresh start for Bobby, because, again, a lot of these fans have built up this perspective of him because he's been here for so long, and it's not just going to be a clean slate where 1 year, for example, like Molly comes in, and it's only 1 year, so like Molly's immediately on a high. But with Bobby, we've seen the lows, we've seen the highs, and the highs haven't been tremendously high. Making the tournament is obviously a great thing, but they haven't gone extremely far in the tournament. They haven't been a high seed in the tournament, and so I think the program might just need a reset. Is what a lot of people would say. Just a sort of fresh start to keep things new and to see what maybe a new voice could say in there. But who knows what the decision is again with Bobby. Like Bobby mentioned in his in that New York Times article, he said if they don't want me, then they don't want me. And it again comes down to him. After the Tech win, he said, I think I can coach with. I can match up against any coach in the country. And so for him, if he feels like that, that's just how he feels. And so if that's at ASU, if that's somewhere else, if they come to the conclusion that maybe Bobby hasn't been given everything that he needs to succeed at ASU, and they come to that conclusion, that's the conclusion they come to. Yeah. But I think from the other perspective, I think a fresh start would be definitely something that a lot of fans would look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. All right. We're going to transition now into some sort of fun mini games, but we'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. We're going to get right into it with our first little game. We're going to have, Pratham, we're going to have you blind rank these 5 ASU men's basketball players based on how clutch they are, all right? Ooh. Not based off of talent, not based off of performance, just based off of clutch gene. And first one is the big man himself, Masamba Diop.
It's an interesting one because he's so young that we haven't really seen. He's not really someone that you go to for like a scoring option. I'm just trying to think who I would take over him, because I'd definitely take Moe. Probably, it's a tough one. Overall, I think I go 4 for him, just on clutching. But, I mean, just on clutching. We haven't seen too much of him either.
Just clutch, yeah. Got Santiago Truitt.
Again, Truitt, he's been a big-time rebounder in the clutch in certain games as well. He doesn't really shoot a lot. He doesn't score a lot either. Is this only scoring, or are we going in general?
Just based off of clutch, whatever you just. So if you think like scoring clutch moments, just whatever clutch gene you.
we're gonna go scoring, I guess I go 5, but he does have some good plays in the clutch. But I guess we'll go 5.
We'll go 5. Okay. All right, we got Alan Mukemba.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
My namesake.
McKay he just doesn't play very much in the clutch, so I guess we have to go 3 for that.
3.
But yeah, I'm probably.
All right, we got 2 left. We got Anthony Pig Johnson.
Pig would go 2.
Pig 2.
I think Pig is he would be clear 2.
And then you left 1 open, and
Yeah.
we're gonna give you Moe Odum for the 1. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'll probably switch Truitt and McCabe, simply because McCabe doesn't play very much in the clutch. Well, Pig, like the other 4, close essentially in most of the games.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think Odum at 1 is really what I was waiting for.
Okay, I'm gonna give you 4 current ASU coaches and 4 attributes, and I want you to kind of match which attribute you'd take from each coach. So we've got Bobby Hurley, Molly Miller, Kenny Dillingham, and then ASU hockey coach Greg Powers. Okay, and then I want you to take their IQ, their personality or culture, their leadership, and then their accountability. Which one do you think you would take from each coach to make the perfect ASU basketball coach?
Well, if you're okay for basketball, I think I'd take Hurley's IQ because I do think again he's the all-time NCAA assist leader, or at least somewhere up. I mean, he was a fantastic college player at Duke, obviously. So I'd take his IQ. I think he's very smart. He knows a lot about the game. He's played it for God knows how many years. He's coached it for so many years as well.
Yeah.
So I'd take Bobby's IQ. What are the other ones you said?
Culture, leadership, and accountability.
I think Molly's culture. She's already cultivated that sense of, Arizona State and winning in this program that was down in the dumps for 3 years. Immediately she comes in and you just feel it, even in games where they lose, even in games where they don't play as well as they do. So you just sort of feel that, and the players behind her as well. So I'd take her culture. I haven't covered Greg Powers very much, but I take his accountability. I saw, he had a similar quote like Bobby did about, he wasn't really getting through the team. And he's someone who, again, I haven't covered him much, but he's had some huge wins against, really high-ranked teams. So I take his accountability, and then leadership. Again, I think Kenny's one of the best leaders in college sports, period, in terms of people want to play for him. I mean, I don't even play any sport, and like Kenny would make me want to get off my couch and do something because, just listen to him speak. Like he's definitely someone that I want to play for. So I'd definitely take Kenny's leadership.
Definitely. I think that's a pretty good list. Kenny's leadership is unmatched, honestly.
Yeah.
He's done such a great job with the ASU football team.
Right.
All right. That's all we had. Just a couple quick games for you. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast, Pratham. Once again, I'm Alan Deutschendorf, sports editor, joined alongside sports lead reporter Pratham Valluri. Thank you so much, and have a great day.